We're going to call the regular council meeting of August 25th, 2014, order at 7 p.m. Everyone please rise for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, call roll please.
Sturritt.
Here.
Wallach.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Conan.
Here.
Cooper.
Here.
Audie. Here. Ballard.
Here.
Everyone has the agenda in front of them tonight. Is there anything anyone would like to add, remove, or is there a motion at this time?
I want to move the where is it?
3D.
3D up to 3A, please. Just move everything down one. That's the municipal credits, community credits.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
Madam President, I'll move the agenda be accepted as amended.
Motion by Mr. Ballard. Is there a second?
Support.
Support by Mr. Clark. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried. Any citizen comment on non-agenda items? Any citizen comment? Hearing none, we'll move on. We have no presentations tonight. We are now on our administrative reports. We do not have an F&B report. Are there any liaison reports at this time?
Madam President, that sewer pump that you asked about, Mr. Clark, or Trustee Clark, was installed. It's working fine. So they're also going to look at some of the other pumps to see if there's other options for us within the facility.
Everything go good?
Yep, no problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Sturritt? Hearing none, any other liaison reports at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. It's the approval of the regular council meeting minutes of August 11th, 2014, and the payment of bills. Is there anything anyone would like to pull, or is there a motion at this time?
Yeah. Ignore your statement. Go ahead. Take C off of your consent agenda statement, because we didn't do that under consent.
I don't have a seat.
It's not on the
It's
agenda.
on this.
It's just on that sheet.
But this is what you're approving, so.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion by Mr. Sturd. Is there a second?
Support.
Support by Mr. Ballard. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried. We have no old business tonight. We are now moving into new business. The first action is, bear with me here one second. I get it. Fiscal year 2015 municipal and community credits. Are there any public comments? Any public comments? Could you please state your name for us, please?
I'm Jeff White with Richmond Line CMS. And if somebody just wants to make a motion to turn over municipal community credits to us, I'll sit back down and you can move on with the meeting. If you'd like a little bit of a report on the smart activity for the year, I can tell you that here in the village and township combined, we transported 590 people on the community transit vehicles last year. The community transit service is still operating at same hours as last year, from Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. until 7:30 p.m. and then Saturdays from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. The phone number for folks who might need it is unchanged. That phone number to schedule a ride is 586-749-7713. As you're aware, just as information, SMART had a millage on the most recent primary election here in August. It was called the Macomb County Public Transportation Millage because SMART operates its millage by county, if you will. So Macomb had a millage, Oakland County had a millage, Wayne County had a millage, if you will. And in Armada Township and Village Precincts 1 and 2, there was a total, I don't have the total number of votes cast, but there was 365 yes votes and 338 no votes cast. So it passed by a somewhat small margin, but nevertheless passed here in your community, as it did throughout Macomb County. Macomb County had passed on about a 60 to 40% margin. The millage is for 1 mill and lasts for 4 years. With that millage this year, we were able to lobby SMART for a small increase in the community credit side of funding. about a 15% increase in what you get that comes out of the millage. As you're aware, or you may remember from years past, there are municipal credits and community credits. Municipal credits basically come from the state of Michigan through road use and gas tax. Community credits come out of the millage. Like I say, this year we were able to talk to the folks at SMART, because when the millage first was proposed, there was really no dollars in it to increase any service or even cover some of the costs since about 2008 that have gone up for all of us out here that we've not been compensated for. So we sat down with the administration there, and they agreed that there should be an increase in the community credits, and they made that available this year. And as some of you will remember, last year we had a kind of close call with municipal credits, when what we were told was just an error in the budget process caused the municipal credits to be taken completely out of the state's budget. And so in the 11th hour, we had to do a little bit of lobbying with our legislators. And I know Representative Goyke from Armada, he covers Armada Township here, I know, and our Representative Andrew LaFontaine, who covers some of the Lenox, New Haven direction down there for us, were able to come together and actually get a appropriation passed after the budget was approved in order to restore that funding. So we came real close to coming this year in August and saying, gee whiz, we don't know if we can continue to provide any service. And I'm pleased to say it looks like we're here and here to stay at least for the next 4 years. So I'm very proud of that. Like I say, the total funding that your community receives is $5,164 this year. In years past, your community has in fact turned over all those dollars to Richmond Lenox EMS to provide the community transit service here in both Armada Village and in Armada Township. This goes back to an agreement made some years ago, before many of you sat on the board. I think some of you may have been here then, but before a lot of you sat on the board, where it used to be Armada Township was giving us a little bit of money, and Armada Village was giving us a little money, and then both of you were giving money to some senior programs and PAL and other things. And an agreement came about from the township and the village to say, the village just turn over your money, would turn over their money to Richmond Lenox, and then Armada Township would cover the all others, which are the I think PAL that they put some money into, and the senior program and recreation and other areas that they might use their dollars. So we're kind of asking consideration that the village would do the same thing again this year. Certainly it's your money, and we can't, we can't or would never suggest we should require that of you. But that's kind of the history of the funding and how it's going. If there's no questions, that's really all I have to report.
Thank you, Mr. White. Are there any other? Yes, Ms. Maxey.
Not to take away at all from what Jeff has said, because we know that the service that they provide is tremendous to the citizens of Armada. However, I would not be doing my job if I didn't come and appeal to you for some funds for PAL as well. The busing is the second most expensive part of the camp, other than paying for the camp itself. And like I said, I would be neglecting my duties if I didn't come and just ask you to consider us for some funds for the buses to take the campers to camp in 2015.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
I'm Fred Barbrett. I'm with SMART, and Jeff has a lot of hats on, and I just figure I better put my 2 cents in, because he clearly is trying to take my hat. He's got as much knowledge about the history of the arrangement between the village and the township. If people have any questions about how that kind of was a gentle-ladies agreement about how things would get divided up, and just as an FYI, the township does still have almost $6,000 available from fiscal year 2014 to be used for those PAL trips. So that's one thing people should know.
Actually, we only give them 3,000.
We have 3,000.
For the seniors and ASAP gets the rest.
Okay, so it would be divided up between, but there's still $6,000 available for the township for fiscal year 2014, correct?
And we're talking about 15.
I'm talking about
Yeah, you have last year's funds that were never spent.
Yeah, there's
You have
still
$6,000 left from
almost
last year.
Yeah,
that
well,
they
yeah,
never
3,000
spent.
of it is per payout. We haven't
We
spent
just
it
got
yet.
the bill for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the
So
seniors
then-
have a couple trips and ASAP. So it'll all be used by September. in
Okay,
September.
but that's fiscal year 2014
That's
money.
14.
And what we're talking about now is fiscal year 2015, which those dollars are just becoming available now after the election, so.
Okay.
So, and just two things you should know real quick about Jeff. When the municipal credit cut came down last year, and when I made Jeff aware and a lady in St. Clair Shores, the senior director there, the two of them really were the people responsible for lobbying the state reps, and Jeff mentioned Ken Goike and Andrea LaFontaine, who immediately responded, and down in St. Clair Shores was Tony Ferlini, and really all of the community-based service programs, whether it's in Macomb, Oakland, or Wayne, benefited because of the lobbying that Jeff and Sue did down in St. Clair Shores. So he really should get credit for that, as well as he was the person who lobbied on behalf of that increase for this year. And just, you should be aware that he really does look out for the programs that for the people who are benefiting from the transportation provided. So I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Hearing none, council deliberation.
I wasn't here during this gentleman's agreement. Do we?
I don't think, well, he might have been
I
Dave.
mean,
I don't know. I'm not disagreeing with it, but I don't
I
know.
believe it
But
came in my first year of president, when I was president first.
Yeah, it's not a written agreement because
No, not at all.
have
It was
this
just, it was just easier than, I'm sorry. It was, what it was since each one of you were
Right.
giving us about $2,000 to $3,000 and all added up to about 5,000, you know,
Right.
talking round numbers.
Right.
It just became easier from a bookkeeping standpoint,
Right.
that you guys would give your 5,000 and they would give the other. So it can be handled however you'd like at this point. I want to make that absolutely clear, certainly. But then what we would end up doing, is I never go to Armada Township and request funds because I've always kind of tried to follow this, kind of year after year, if you will, agreement. If this shouldn't happen, where we can't put together $5,000, however we put that together, whether we put it together from your funds and then let them take care of PAL and the other issues, or whether we put together $2,500 from each of you, then really, and this isn't I don't mean to sound threatening, but my point is, we can't continue to operate for less money. And since 2008, we haven't seen an increase. So this is our only chance for an increase that we lobbied for. And if communities start taking that back because suddenly you got a little bit more money, we're going to be left in a position where we have to pull back a little bit of service. I mean, we just can't afford to keep operating at 2008 levels.
I don't mean to interrupt, Mr. Wade, but this is council deliberation time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I know you haven't been to a lot of our meetings, so that's why we open it up for comment, and then the council deliberates. So unless we have a specific question, we'll ask a question, if that's okay. And then we'll have plenty of time at the end under citizen comments at the end that we can address any additional concerns, okay?
now we do give money to PAL through block grant
CDBG.
money.
Yes, that's CDBG, and that's for sponsorships, for campers. That is correct. Any other comments from the
I have
council?
a question.
Yes.
Each community gets the same amount, I take it.
I do believe it's based on tax dollars, isn't it?
That would actually,
Based on-
I had asked Fred to come tonight because I knew there were gonna be questions that I couldn't answer. That's why I asked Fred to be here. So I mean, if you have specific questions, you probably really should direct them to Fred.
The municipal credit portion is based on census data,
Okay.
and the village 1710 is the amount, 1,710, and the township received 3572. The community credits was originally based on that, but that goes back to 1995, and the formula has been adjusted a number of times, so much so that it really isn't a formula anymore. But for this year, the village 3454, and the township was 7959.
So it must have a lot to do with population.
So,
And,
it has to do
Yeah.
with population
Yeah.
and tax base.
yeah,
Primarily.
okay.
Any other comments from council? Any other comments? There's a motion there. Anyone would like to change it or leave it the way it is? Opening up.
I mean,
up
I
to-
feel bad. I enjoyed PAL. My son enjoyed PAL. But if there wasn't, you know what I mean? It's the catch-22.
There was an increase of $452 from last year due to the millage. So.
If we do change it, we're gonna have to have another contract drawn up with Fred.
Right.
Are you just gonna have to change this so it doesn't read, this is just the same motion from every year, so.
Madam President, I'll resolve to allow the clerk to sign the municipal credit and community credit contract for fiscal year 2015 to distribute to municipal credit funds totaling $1,710 and the community credit funds totaling $3,454 directly to Richmond Lennox EMS.
Motion by Mr. Ballard, is there a second?
Support.
Support by Mr. Clark. Any other discussions? Is this a roll call?
Yeah. Ready? Ballard,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Conan,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Wolock,
Abstain.
Audie,
Yes.
Stirrett.
No.
Motion passes. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you. If anybody has any questions afterwards, please feel free. She'll pass my number along. I'm happy to talk to anyone.
Thank you. Next agenda item is the auditor's report. Are there any public comments? Any public comments? Hearing none, I will turn this over to Mr. McBride, our village auditor.
I'm gonna warn you, it's gonna get bright.
Sure, I forgot.
Good evening, I'm Amy Delia. I'm staff manager at McBride Family and Company. And under the supervision of Curtis McBride, we performed the financial statement audit for the village for the fiscal year end March 31st, 2014. Now, an audit provides reasonable assurance that the financial statements as presented by management are free of material misstatements. Now, this consists of forming an opinion. Our opinion, which you can find in the financial statements on page 1, is an unmodified opinion. And this simply means that we have no reservations or concerns regarding the financial statements and that they appear to be presented fairly. An unmodified opinion is commonly referred to as a clean opinion. So now I'm going to take a few moments and highlight some of the information that you'll find in the statements. We did make copies of the handouts for you of our presentation tonight. It might be a little bit easier to follow along. However, since they are not a full set of financial statements, we ask that you please not distribute them. First, starting with the general fund, which is the primary operating fund for the village. At March 31st, 2014, there was $523,000 in cash and investments. This is approximately 90% of total assets in the general fund. The general fund ended with a fund balance of $441,000. Now, the state of Michigan requires a fund balance to be at least 10% of annual expenditures. The GFOA recommends a minimum of 2 to 3 months of annual expenditures. Our firm is a little bit more conservative, and we recommend that the fund balance not get below 15 to 20%. Now, I'm going to stress, those are minimums. So looking at the general funds at the end of the year, it's 62% or about 7 to 8 months of annual expenditures. So it remains very healthy and well in excess of those minimums. Now taking a look at the activity for the year, the general fund had $725,000 in total revenues, and expenditures totaled $707,000. As a result, there was a net increase in fund balance of $19,000 for the year. Taking a closer look at the sources of revenue, you'll notice that property taxes make up between 40 and 45% of total revenues, and state shared revenues is about 20 to 22%. Now, these are the two major sources of income for the village. In 2014, total revenues did decrease. That's in part due to $100,000 that was received in CDBG funds in 2013 versus $5,000 that was received in 2014. Now, these funds were used for the sidewalk replacement. We have here the expenditures by type. And like the revenues, expenditures decreased for the year 2014. Now that, in relation to the CDBG, The money weren't spent, so therefore the revenues went down the same as the expenses. Another area that you'll notice a decrease is capital outlay. If you recall, last year in 2013, a dump truck and a cargo van were purchased for the DPW in addition to a police car. Now moving on to the other major governmental funds for the village, the local street, major street, and municipal street funds. Now these are special revenues funds, which simply means that their resources are reserved for specific uses. In this case, the construction and maintenance of roads. Now all three funds at the end of the fiscal year had a majority of its assets in the form of cash and equivalents. Local street and major street receives primary funding from the state of Michigan in the form of Act 51 funds. The municipal street receives its funding from property tax revenues. During 2014, local street had a 15% increase in fund balance, major street had a $4,000 increase, and municipal street had a $26,000 net increase in fund balance. Now, special revenue funds are directly related to projects, so the fund balance from year to year could fluctuate. So you may want to keep an eye on that fund balance, and if it gets near the 10% minimum requirement by the state, maybe you want to limit the spending and start building that fund back up. Now at the end of 2014, local street had $36,000 fund balance, which is about 50% of annual expenditures. Major street was at $51,000, which is about 65% of annual expenditures. And municipal street ended with $426,000, which is well over 100% of annual expenditures. So once again, all three funds are very healthy in excess of those minimum requirements. As I mentioned, state revenues is one of the major sources of income for the village. That center column, revenue sharing, is the general fund's portion of state sales tax, liquor tax, and public safety funding received from the state of Michigan. And as you can see, over the last 7 years, this amount has remained relatively constant. Moving over to the next column, the distribution to streets is primarily Act 51 funds. Now if you look at 2014, you'll notice that there's a larger increase from prior year. This is because the village received $6,000 in special winter maintenance funding. These funds were specifically designated for winter maintenance expenses incurred during the 2013-2014 season. This is because of that harsh winter that we had. Now these funds are not Act 51 funds. They were a special allocation, so you shouldn't expect or count on receiving those again in the future. And this is where I'm going to turn it over to Curtis. Thanks.
Good evening. I'm just very briefly going to introduce myself. My name is Curtis McBride, as Amy had indicated. I'm the managing partner for McBride Manley & Company. I've been with the firm for about 13 years, and I've been involved with the Village of Armada's audit since day one. So I do have a lot of experience in auditing and with the village's finances and management. So this is my 13th year on the job. The first line I want to talk about is a historical trend analysis for property tax revenues in the general fund. Now you can see this goes all the way back to 2010. So you can see the peak year for property taxes was actually 2010 at about $573,000. You can see that number has come all the way down to about $458,000 at the end of 2014. So property tax revenues have decreased by about $114,000 since 2010, or about a 20% decrease. So that is pretty substantial. Now, this is not unique to the Village of Armada. This has happened in virtually every community in the state of Michigan. This situation has been devastating for a lot of communities. One problem is, you know, if we probably went back another 2 years to 2008, I'm guessing you would see that it would be even worse. This happens because anytime you have 1 or 2 years where you have one or two significant decreases in property tax assessments due to Proposal A, which limits taxable value in any year to CPI. So if you have 1 year where your property tax assessment goes down by 25-30%, it's going to take a lot of time to get back up to where it was. So this situation has been devastating for a lot of communities. But what we'll see on subsequent slides is that you guys have done a very good job at managing this situation. Now this is also a historical analysis of the fund balance, which Amy discussed in a previous slide. You can see that even though your property tax revenues have gone down by about 20% from 2010 to 2014, your fund balance level has remained pretty consistent and pretty healthy. So in fact, at the end of 2014, the general fund balance is actually at its peak in that time period at $442,000. So again, the village has done a great job at managing its lost revenues. Now moving on to the water and sewer funds. These funds are quite a bit different than the general fund and the major local and municipal street funds. These are what we call enterprise funds. And we call these enterprise funds because they're accounted for more similar to that of a private business. And that's because as opposed to generating property tax revenues, the village charges customers or charges the village residents for use of the system. So one unique thing about these two funds, as Amy had mentioned in previous slides, in most of your other funds, the majority of the assets are actually in the form of cash or liquid assets. So if you go about halfway down the slide here, you can see you have an asset under non-current assets called fixed assets. Now, these are the actual water and sewer plants themselves and all the major equipment that are in those plants. So it would make sense that the majority of the assets in these funds would not be liquid, but would be capital in nature. So if you think of it this way, these are assets that you can't pay bills with, okay? Now, although these two funds are quite a bit different than the general fund, if you go to the second line from the bottom where we have unrestricted net position, now that is kind of what I would consider equivalent to the general fund balance. So you can see in the sewer fund, you had unrestricted net position, or fund balance, if you will, of about $222,000. And in the water fund, that's about $297,000 or $298,000. Now the state of Michigan doesn't really have a recommended minimum fund balance on these two funds. So in our opinion, you really want that to be a minimum of about 15 to 20% in that range. Now at the end of 2014, the village's fund balance in the sewer fund was about 48% of annual expenditures. So you're certainly not approaching that minimum in the sewer fund. In the water fund, it's about 98% of annual expenditures. So really in these two funds, you're not approaching our recommended minimum levels. So you guys are doing a good job in both of these funds. Now moving on to the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position, which is really just another word for an income statement for the water and sewer funds. You can see that as opposed to the general fund, which derives almost all of its revenues from property taxes and distributions from the state, you can see that almost all the revenues are for sales and charges. And of course that's for charges to the village residents for using the systems. So you can see if you go about 75% of the way down, there's a bold number called change in net position. So that is basically the increase or decrease in fund balance in these two funds. So the sewer fund had a little decrease of about $34,000 in equity, and the water fund had an increase of about $92,000 for the year. Now, I just started adding this new slide to all my audit presentations. And I certainly didn't do this because I think the village has something to worry about. It's just that I get a lot of phone calls from a lot of council members from other communities asking me specific questions about allowable expenditures. So I wanted to just bring this to your attention. And really, I want council to be able to use this as a tool. When you guys are approving expenditures, monthly expenditures, really should keep these in mind. This is basically what the state of Michigan thinks. Now, this is directly out of the audit manual for local units of government in Michigan. This is actually a tool that we use when we're performing our audit, so just so that you have this handy. Again, I just put it, there's certainly a lot more than just this. I just put some information that I think may be relevant to you guys. Now, the first bullet point here, the village cannot make a donation to a not-for-profit organization, such as a church, Little League, Boy Scout, or Girl Scout troop. Payments to charities are allowed if the payment is for goods or services provided by the charity. So the not-for-profit group must actually provide the village a service in order for you to pay that, okay? The second bullet point here, the village is allowed to spend money for public celebrations and events such as Veterans Day, Independence Day, Memorial Day, and Diamond Jubilee or Centennial celebrations. And I have an MCL reference right here. That's right out of the Michigan compiled law, so that's right in the Michigan statute. Annual picnics or other celebrations that are not specifically allowed by law or that do not serve a public purpose, which is the key phrase here, are not allowed. Something that's interesting that I see come up a lot, again, I'm not saying the village has this, but a lot of people aren't aware that this is a rule. This next bullet point. The village is not allowed to spend money on flowers or floral arrangements that are a gift. This is right out of an Attorney General opinion from 1956. The last bullet point here, this kind of just sums everything up here. In general, the village is allowed to spend funds that serve a public purpose, which is defined as for the promotion of the public health, safety, morals, general welfare, security, prosperity, and contentment of all inhabitants or residents within the village, which are used to promote public purpose. And of course, this is defined right in a Michigan Supreme Court case decided in 2004. So when you guys are looking at your monthly expenditures to determine whether or not they're allowable, what you really need to keep in mind is, does this expenditure serve a public purpose? So if you keep that in mind, you guys will be fine. Now, I will tell you from an audit standpoint, in my experience, what I see is that it is common for a community to maybe have a couple of these expenditures every year. It does happen. From an audit standpoint, what I try to do is make sure that it's an isolated incident. So if it's something that I see maybe happens once or twice every year, you definitely want to communicate it with the community. But that's not a huge deal. I think a lot of communities have these types of expenditures. What you want to avoid is you want to make sure you don't have 3 or 4 of these every month. And then that's a systematic problem. Summary of the audit. Again, I want to reiterate that the fund balances do remain healthy for the village. As we mentioned, the general fund has a fund balance of about 62% of annual expenditures, which is above the recommended minimum by the state of Michigan of 10%. Significant improvements were made with respect to accounting for transactions between funds. Basically, what this means is, in the past, we've spent a significant amount of time reconciling transactions between the funds, such as transfers between the funds, amounts due from other funds. So you guys have gotten a lot better internally at reconciling those items. This one I kind of file under the concern. I've been talking to you guys about this the last couple years. It is projected that the DDA fund will need assistance from the general fund to meet its debt obligation. And that kind of leads into my next slide here. Really simple. This is the projected DDA bond shortfall. Now, as you can see, we're expecting anywhere from about $30,000 to about $43,000 or $44,000 a year shortfall from 2015 through 2027, which is when the bond matures. Now, we're actually not projecting any DDA tax revenues based on what we saw in 2014. So in 2014, the DDA did not generate any tax revenues. So based on what I know with Proposal A, I'm projecting that they're actually probably not going to be able to contribute much more to their debt service. So based on that, I'm guessing that the general fund is probably going to have to start making debt payments for the DDA sometime in about 2018. So that's when you consider the cash that's currently left in the DDA fund. Now, the good news is, right now, the general fund has a healthy fund balance. That's the first thing. Second of all, your Morrison Street property debt goes away by the end of next year. That's going to free up about $25,000 in fund balance in the general fund to start paying towards the DDA bond. So that $25,000 a year is really going to help this situation. And what you really should be looking at for budgeting purposes, so if we know we have the $25,000 to use towards this every year, you probably want to make sure that you budget the general fund to have about a $10,000 to $20,000 increase in its fund balance every year. If you can do that combined with the $25,000 freed up in debt there, you will see no decrease in your general fund balance over this period through 2027. So really, like I said, from a budgeting standpoint, really focus on getting your general fund, increasing your general fund balance about $10,000 to $20,000 every year through 2027. And you guys managed to do that during 2014. Like Amy had mentioned, you guys had about a $19,000 or $20,000 increase in your general fund balance. So if you can continue to do that every year, you guys will be fine. I just have one more quick comment I want to make before I open to questions. We send 2 letters to you guys every year. We send it to the council members. They're what we call communication letters. And really, it's a short 2 or 3 page document. And really what it is it's encouraging you to contact me. We want it to be a 2-way communication relationship. So if you guys have any questions or concerns throughout the year, please, I encourage you to call me, and I will make any time that I have available for anyone on council to talk to me. So I want you to be aware that that's really what those letters are for. It says, hey, we're starting to begin our audit. Please contact me if you have any questions or concerns.
All 3 of those phones on there have you on speed dial, so anybody, one of them.
I certainly, the management, such as Joe and Michelle, they do, and Becky, they call me frequently. And, we definitely try to make sure we accommodate them. But really, I don't get a lot of phone calls from council members. So I just want to, remind you that, encourage you to call me if you have any questions or concerns.
Are there any questions for Mr. McBride? Very thoroughly done. Thank you so much. I love the way you guys make this so concise for us. With that, we're going to turn the camera off for 1 second just so we can reposition it so we can get the better angle. Thank you. Okay, we're back on for repositioning of the camera. Are there any other questions for Mr. McBride? Hearing none, everyone has a motion in front of them at this time. Would someone like to make a motion?
I would resolve to approve the proposal from McBride Manley Company PC for audit services for fiscal year ending in March 31st, 2015 in the amount of $21,900.
Oh, wrong, that's the first, you need the one ahead of it, Mark. There, that easier one. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, we have to set the first one, sorry.
Yep, that's okay.
Resolved to set the audit for fiscal year ending March 31st, 2014 and place it on file.
Motion by Mr. Wolock, is there a second?
Support.
Support by Mr. Ballard. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried. The next agenda item is the auditor's proposal for fiscal year 2015 audit. Are there any public comments? Any public comments? Hearing none, Treasurer Adair, this is your agenda item.
It's just the other.
It's the audit approval that we do every year, so that, we retain them to do the audit for us, which I would highly recommend.
The amount has not changed.
The amount hasn't changed.
3 or 4 years, I believe. Yeah.
So,
I would still resolve to approve the proposal from McBride Manley Company PC for audit services for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2015 in the amount of $21,900 and to allow the treasurer to sign on behalf of the village.
Motion by Mr. Wolock, is there a second?
Support.
Support by Mr. Ballard. Any other discussion? Please, a roll call.
I think for years we've had excellent service from the company.
Yes.
From Senior McBride on now, and sorry to have him missed with us for years too, so.
Any other
I've talked with
discussion?
other communities too, and I don't think anybody's as happy with their auditor as we
No.
are. So I would highly recommend them to any
Yep.
community.
Yes, and we do. We
Yeah.
have.
We do.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
So,
Okay, ready? Bullock,
Yes.
Ballard,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Audi,
Yes.
Conan,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes,
Clark.
Yes.
motion passes. Thank you again so much. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Before they.
It's a little late.
No, go ahead. Josh just got.
Oh, okay.
Her signature.
Okay,
so-
the next agenda item is the Romeo to Richmond Half Marathon. Are there any public comments? Any public comments? Hearing none, Clerk Polis, this is your agenda item.
I was contacted by the memo that was attached. They are doing the Romeo to Richmond half marathon again, and the county would just like our permission to allow them to cross Fulton. I don't believe this involves any of our services. I believe the sheriff's department takes care of the policing, and it's same thing as last year, so.
Madam President, I'll resolve to allow the Romeo to Richmond Half Marathon to cross Fulton Street on September 14, 2014, and to allow the clerk to sign the attached resolution on behalf of the village.
Motion by Mr. Ballard, is there a second?
Support.
Support by Mr. Clark. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried. Next agenda item is adjustment to office hours closing at noon on Fridays. Are there any public comments? Any public comments? Hearing none, Clerk Polis, this is your agenda item.
Well, I'm asking council to consider closing the office on Fridays at noon. The amount of traffic that we get through here on Fridays is minimal. The afternoon especially is very minimal. The phone calls that come in, no offense, Mary, but are mostly for the township on Fridays. And yeah, and it's Becky's hours. She's supposed to work 32, I believe. Yeah, 32. So that will take 4 hours off for her, standard for her every week. I'm just asking council to consider it. I put all the rest of the hours on there in the motion. This does not affect the police or the DPW, just to make that
It
clear.
won't mess up your minutes, or not minutes, the council packets?
No.
That won't change it?
Well, if I need to stay, I'll stay. I mean, if there's a point where, say, water bills are due that day,
Yeah.
or any major things are due, I mean, yes, we'll stay open. It's just,
Right.
for the most part, honestly, there's.
But you're not coming back to council to stay open for water bills? I mean, you can
No,
have the
no, 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 no,
discretion
no.
to do that, right? I mean,
Yeah,
legally.
no, I mean, it's staying open, I don't think would be a problem. We just won't lock the door, so.
kind of like I do with tax season, I leave the
Right.
doors unlocked, due date on taxes till
Becky
8 o'clock
told,
at night.
Becky told me Friday afternoons, she just gets
Yeah, right,
nobody.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
no,
a ghost town.
it's
Well,
crazy.
Well, the residents of condition to the township of having Friday off anyhow.
Well, that's
So-
why I only asked to do,
Yeah.
my thought is to do a half a day, for a while to see how it's received. If it turns out that people then just assume that we're closed, I'll come back and ask you to maybe just close for the whole day. But right now, my concern is just making sure that it's received well, so.
And the only real people or contacts that we have on Fridays would be contractors wanting to pull a permit or something. And that's usually always in the morning, they want to get their permits and get gone. So
Yep.
by closing at noon, it doesn't even affect any of those type of situations.
Madam President, I'll resolve to approve the following amended village office hours. Monday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Tuesday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Thursday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Friday, 8 a.m. to 12 o'clock noon.
And close.
Saturday, closed, and Sunday closed.
Motion by Mr. Ballard, is there a second?
Do we want to put effective today?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Effective today.
Motion by Mr. Ballard, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cronin. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay?
Motion carried. Okay, next agenda item is final payment, plumbers environmental services. Are there any public comments? Any public comments? Hearing none, Sewer Commissioner Sturritt, this is your agenda item.
Yes, there was two things we need to pay plumbers for to complete that part of the S2 grant. One of them is an invoice for $693.67. They had to come back out here and televise a little bit of pipe. Again, both of these amounts I'm giving you are covered under the S2 grant 80/20. So we're going to process the payment. Once it's processed, Joe will accumulate any other bills and submit them to the state of Michigan. These are all within the budget parameters, and everything's still on track with that side of it. The second part is payment recommendation letter, which includes this invoice, but it also pays the 5% to plumbers that we retained from the 2013, I believe it was October, cleaning and televising project. Everything's been met. I did not have Becky put the rest of it behind your packet because it's just some paperwork where they signed off that they completed it. Giffords said everything was fine. So with that being said, I'll make a motion to approve the invoice from Plumbers Environmental Services, Inc., plus the 5% retainage for a total payment of $3,671.74.
Motion by Mr. Sturritt, is there a second?
Support.
Support by Mr. Konen. Any other discussion? Is it roll call?
Sturritt?
Yes.
Conan?
Yes.
Baylor?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Audie?
Yes.
Hoover?
Yes.
I'm sorry, did I forget? Wallach?
Yes.
Motion passes. We are at the end of our new business. Now we are under upcoming agenda items. Is there anything that anyone would like to put on the next meeting agenda? Anything? Hearing none? Any other citizen comments?
The township voted to give Richmond Lennox $1,000 this year, and as far as, ever since I've been clerk, we've always given them some money. I think Sandy's, they've always given them some money too, so just to let you know that we're giving them $1,000 this year.
For smart,
First,
To Richmond Lennox.
Okay.
Yeah, we've always given them some money, so,
I thought you weren't going to.
well, actually, the supervisor did speak with Jeff.
Oh.
I know that, so, but every year we've always given them.
we didn't know.
I know Jeff kind of led you astray a little bit on
I
that one.
know, I know that.
I wish you guys would have spoke up. We could have rectified it.
We don't want to.
Okay.
So, but.
Well, we know for
maybe-
next
maybe
year.
For next year,
That's-
though.
We do know for
that
next year.
it'll-
Okay.
Yeah. there'll be-
If there's some
they'll work with it.
communication that you can get to this office before the meeting, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Do you guys mind doing that?
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
The number that was the most impressive to me was they had 500 runs out of the building.
It's a great service.
590.
You know, that's what I said right at the start. I am not here to say anything bad about that service.
Well,
It's a
that's
great
why I
service.
supported
I
that.
just needed to do my due diligence
Yes.
as well. and
Well,
ask
because we
Brian.
do give the Pell through the block grant, that's why I supported
Yeah.
that, because of those 500
Yeah.
runs.
And I want to thank everybody again for the CDG funds and also for the consideration tonight for the SMART funds. I want to let you know, I've been going to camp for 13 years, and we were very nervous this year taking these children at the time that we took them. We had the best year of camp that we've had since I've been going. It was a great year.
that's
The
awesome.
kids were happy, we kept them busy. There was nothing on their mind but having a good time and enjoying themselves. It was great. And we were able to send 10 children to camp with those CDBG funds that would not have been able to go to camp had it not been for those. So,
Perfect, it was 10.
10.
Awesome.
Good job. We needed that. Our kids needed it.
Yes, they
Good
did.
job. Good job. Thank you. So, Ms. Wyacki, is that the end of your comments?
Card from Curtis.
They're from the township board. They would like your business card.
I
Yeah.
can contact you and give you one.
I think-
Are you at the township?
Yeah.
Ms. Hoxie, do you
I think
still
I've
want
given
to
it
say
to you.
something?
but I'll-
No, I said everything I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, yep. Any other citizen comments? Hearing none, any council comments? Any council comments?
Other
Am I
than just
supposed
a
to?
reminder that any of you that don't want to keep your audit reports for references, I would like them because there are financial institutions that where I have to give them out distribute them sometimes for financial backup.
Madam President, I want to wish everyone a safe holiday weekend.
Any other council comments? Hearing none, any community events anyone would like to announce?
Schools coming.
Yes, schools coming.
Now, everyone remember that school does
Mary's
start.
got one.
Mary has
Yes,
one.
hold on. I want to remind everyone that school does start on Wednesday. There is no school on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is that a half a day?
Gosh,
There's a half day on Wednesday, so I'm gonna remind everyone, make sure your calendars are all in tune. Wednesday is the first day of school. There is no school on Tuesday, so please don't drop your children off at school on Tuesday. Yes, Ms. Swyaki.
Actually, on September 27th, the day of the baseball game with fire and the police, we are going to have a township picnic to open up the playscape, let everyone know it's there. So
Is it in?
it's there.
It's
I have
being
not,
used.
I have
It
not
is
been up
there, it's
that
there. So we're
way.
working on doing signs and
A lot of kids are using it.
That's
Every
awesome.
they love it. They just love it. Yeah. So that's phase one. It's not done yet.
Okay,
So
perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other community events? What time is the baseball game? 1 o'clock still?
that I don't know.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay,
I'll let you know what time the picnic starts. Also, we just formed a committee.
okay,
So I don't know what time it will start.
perfect. All right. Thank you so much. We have no closed session tonight. Time is now 7:52.
Move to adjourn.
Support?
Motion by Mr. Wallach, support by Mr. Ballard. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.